There's a question I keep coming back to. Not a philosophical puzzle, not a theological debate, just a simple, almost embarrassing observation. Why is it so hard to sit still? Why do we fill every silence, every gap, every idle moment with noise? I put that question to a man who thought about it more seriously than almost anyone in history. A mathematician, a physicist, a believer, Blaise Pascal.
You are not the first to notice, and you will not be the last to be disturbed by it. The difficulty of stillness, I wrote about this in my Pensée. All of humanity's problems, I said, stem from one thing, the inability to sit quietly in a room alone. People laughed when they first read that. Then they stopped laughing.
Why does that observation cut so deep? It sounds almost too simple.
Because it is simple, and we despise simple truths that expose us. Consider what happens when a man has nothing to do, no task, no obligation, no entertainment. What does he feel? Almost immediately, dread, a nameless unease. He reaches for something, anything. It does not matter what. It matters only that the silence be broken.
And you call that divertissement?
Yes. Diversion, amusement, the great machinery of distraction by which man keeps himself from himself. The hunt, the gambling, the conversation that goes nowhere. These are not pleasures, not truly. Ask any hunter if it is the rabbit he wants. If you offered him the rabbit without the chase, he would refuse. It is the chase he craves, because the chase fills the hours, and full hours do not ask questions.
That's a disturbing way to describe leisure. Most people would say they just enjoy the activity.
Most people have not looked closely enough at their enjoyment. I did not say they feel nothing. I said they are fleeing something. These two things can coexist. You can genuinely laugh at a jest and still be using it as a wall. The question is not whether the distraction pleases you. The question is, what waits for you when the distraction ends?
What does wait? What is the thing being avoided?
The self. And through the self, God. Mankind is a strange creature. We are great enough to sense our own misery. We are miserable enough to be unable to bear it. So we run. We surround ourselves with motion, with sound, with the opinions of others, with mirrors that show us only what we wish to see. But here is the thing about running. You always arrive, eventually, at stillness. And then you must face what you have been carrying.
You were writing in the 17th century. Do you think this has gotten worse? The volume of distraction available now, you couldn't have imagined it.
I could imagine the principle. The forms change, the mechanism does not. In my time, a man needed effort to distract himself. He had to go somewhere, arrange something, find companions. Today, you tell me, the distraction comes to him. It lives in his pocket. It speaks to him before he has even fully woken. This is not a new human condition. It is the ancient condition, accelerated beyond what I could have described. The soul's flight from itself has simply become more efficient.
Some would push back and say, isn't rest legitimate? Isn't play a real human need? Are you condemning all pleasure?
No, I am not a monk, and I am not condemning joy. I was a man of the world before I was a man of God. I understood pleasure. What I am asking is this: is your rest truly rest, or is it escape? True rest restores you. It leaves you more present, more yourself. Escape merely postpones. After escape, you return to the same restlessness, and you need a stronger dose next time. This is how a life is consumed. Not through sin necessarily, but through the infinite management of discomfort.
You're describing something that sounds almost like addiction.
I am describing the human condition without God. We have a void inside us. I wrote of this too. There is a God-shaped hole in the heart of every man, and we spend our lives trying to fill it with things that were never meant for it. The diversions are not evil in themselves, but they are being used as substitutes for the one thing that could actually quiet the restlessness. And they fail. They always fail. That is why the amusement must never stop.
So the boredom, the restlessness, in your view, those aren't problems to be solved with better entertainment. They're symptoms of something deeper.
They are invitations. That is how I came to see them. The dread that visits you in stillness. It is not an enemy. It is a messenger. It is a soul recognizing its own incompleteness and crying out for completion. The tragedy is that we have become so skilled at silencing the messenger that we never receive the message. We treat the symptom and ignore the wound. We have built entire civilizations around the project of never being alone with ourselves.
That's a striking phrase. Civilizations built to avoid silence. Is there a way back? Can someone actually learn to sit with themselves?
It requires courage, not intelligence. I was a man of considerable intellect. I say this without pride, simply as fact, and intellect was no protection. The mind, left to itself, is a remarkable machine for producing reasons not to look at what must be seen. What is required is something quieter than thought, a willingness to stop, to let the silence be silence, to feel the weight of one's own existence without immediately reaching for relief. Most people never try, but I would say this: the moment you stop running, even for an instant, you will find something there, something that has been waiting.
And you'd call that something God?
I would, though I understand not everyone will use that word. But I would ask them, have you ever stopped long enough to find out? Not thought about stopping, not read about stillness, actually stopped. Because there is a difference between discussing the fire and being warmed by it. And the restlessness you feel, that is not evidence that the fire does not exist. It may be evidence of precisely how cold you have become.
Blaise Pascal, mathematician, physicist, and perhaps the most honest diagnostician of the modern soul. Thank you.
We are all patients, Mr. Whitmore. The honest ones simply admit it.
Maybe the most countercultural thing you can do today isn't protest, isn't unplugging entirely. It's just sitting still for 5 minutes and letting whatever comes, come. Don't fear the boredom. Pascal would say it's trying to tell you something. Hey, if you made it this far, subscribe and leave a like. And if someone came to mind while you were watching this, a friend, a family member, someone who never stops moving, send it to them. Sometimes the right conversation finds people at exactly the right moment. Next week, someone who understood Pascal perhaps better than any thinker who came after him. Søren Kierkegaard, a man who never saw a smartphone and yet somehow diagnosed exactly what it does to the soul, the slow erosion of interiority, the death of the self by distraction, the tragedy of a life lived entirely on the surface. That conversation is coming. You don't want to miss it. Until then, find one moment today, alone, quiet. No phone, no music, no podcast, just you. See what's there.